Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to LD3D. And today we are talking about our Cr10S-Pro, and quite possibly an issue that you may have found and not have known about it. Well, while doing some routine maintenance on our Cr10S-Pro, we found a part that looked like it was wearing. And sure enough, when we took it apart, it was. So we communicated with Tiny Machines where we bought our machine, and we talked through a possible solution. And you know, by the next day, they had came up with that solution and had shipped me this part right here. So today, I'm going to show you that wear issue and what causes that in your prints. So you'll have prints that'll have stringing and blobs and sometimes missed extrusions. And you think it's a problem with your hot end. Well, it may not be. It may be a problem with the feed gears for your extruder. So if you have problems with prints that they don't stick together, I'm going to show you how to fix that today on LD3D. Well, welcome back. So here are all the things that you're going to need so we can repair our Cr10S-Pro. So first of all, we're going to need the repair kit from Tiny Machines. And inside of this box has everything we're going to need. Now this is an exchange program, and I'll explain more about that as we go along on why it's an exchange program. So inside of here, we're going to have our instruction sheet on how to do the repair. It's going to show the parts that we need to do, the parts that are supplied by Tiny Machines, and the parts that we're going to have to reuse off of our Cr10S-Pro. We're going to have our return label. So Tiny Machines includes the return label for the exchange program. So that's nice of them to do. And they've got some other shipping information. Inside of here, there's going to be this part, and this is the part that's wearing. So the actual arm that supports our idler feed gear is the one that's wearing and having a problem. And here's a detailed photo of what you can see on your machine just by giving it a quick glance. So as you can see, there is some wear on that gear. And I'm going to show you exactly how to fix that. So we need our repair kit, which has our bracket, and inside of here has a very special little bushing. And that's everything in the repair kit, so it's going to be really simple. You'll also need your Allen wrench that fits the bracket on your Cr10S-Pro. You'll need a little cup that you can put some alcohol in because we need to clean the bearings inside. And you'll need some alcohol, you'll need some paper towels, and you'll also need some gloves so that it can protect your hand from the alcohol as well as the grease residues. Let me get this all set up and I'll show you exactly how to do the repair. Alright, so as you can see, there is this arm right here, and this piece is the piece that we need to change. So what this is going to cause is you can see this buildup of debris that's here. This gear being wore, or the bracket that this gear is in, that will cause this wear issue. So what happens is it binds up in here and causes a retraction issue. So you may have your traction set way too high for the Cr10S-Pro when you're involved in long-term printing. So prints of 4 or 5 hours and many retractions, or if you have a lot of prints that you've printed off of your Cr10S-Pro. So it's very simple to replace this bracket with the new one from Tiny Machines. So let's start by taking off a couple of things that we don't need. We're going to unscrew this bolt right here. It's really easy to do. Okay, and set that aside because you will need it. And then all I do for that is I just kind of poke it out, and then we can remove this spring here. Be careful because this piece is separate and it can come out. We want to make sure we maintain that. The next thing we want to do is remove this bolt that's right here. It's very simple to do. And there you go. So as you can see here, mine has excessive wear inside of that part. So where it's wearing is between the gear and the actual bottom of this swing arm or this grip. And what that does is it causes this gear, if you can see here, it causes this gear to wobble. So if you can see that, it causes it to wobble and to move up and down. And when it does that, it throws off how it feeds your filament into the machine. Alright, so the first thing we need to do is disassemble our old swing arm here. So I'm going to take these two pieces out here. Make sure you remember how they go together. So those go inside of this piece here. So to remove this gear, we need to remove this bolt here. Now there are a lot of oils and things here, so make sure you wear gloves. Just proper PPE. That way we stay safe and we don't have any problems. Save your bolt because you will need it again. We're going to pull this gear out, and to start with, there are what's called finger bearings on the inside here. And so we're going to just gently push those out, and there's one bearing, and there are two of them inside of there. So there's one bearing. We're going to put that inside of our cup. And that's our second bearing. And then we're going to place this whole gear right inside the cup, just like that. We're going to pour just enough alcohol in here to cover our parts. You can agitate those with your hands. We just want that to be cleaned up. That's the great thing about having the gloves on. So we can make sure that everything is completely clean. Okay. And if you rub them gently, then you'll see all of that really gunky old oil and everything come off of them. This is all part of your maintenance. You should do this at least once a year on your printer outside of this as well. And that's how we found this issue in the first place. Just make sure it's all nice and cleaned up. And it's a good time to check your feed gear here. Make sure you don't have any burrs. Make sure it's not worn through. If it's too worn, you might have to replace it. This one looks good. Yeah, this one looks just fine. So we'll just let that sit in there and soak for a few minutes. And I want to show you this detail here. So you can see in this part right here is where it's wearing. So just in this area here. So what Tiny Machines and I have figured out to do here is to cut away the bottom just enough to put that brass spacer in there. And that brass spacer keeps the gear tips away from the edge here so it doesn't grind this anymore, and it'll give you a more accurate and more precise feeding and retraction of this arm with your filament. And this should correct the problem, and we should never have to do this repair again. So let me get these cleaned up and I'll be right back. Alright, so we've got all of our parts cleaned, and I've wiped them off with another clean paper towel so you can see them sitting here. So let's start by taking our bracket and knowing which orientation we're going to need this in. We're going to need a little bit of gear oil or bearing grease on these, and they can use machine oil, but this is the same grease and oil that Creality uses on these to start with. So what I'm going to do is just place a little bit of it on there, kind of roll them in my fingers a little bit, place a little bit inside of here as well. Don't want to be too much, but you do want to have enough in there so you have nice lubrication on them. Slide them in from the bottom side, so where the gear is, slide them in that direction. And all we'll do is lube this one up as well. Just a little bit. A little bit goes a long way. Roll it in your fingers just to make sure you get it in all the bearing places. Slide it right inside just like that. Now that piece is ready to go. Now for our bracket, we need the spacer ring that has a high compression oil. It's a special grease that is on this, so we want to make sure to preserve that and don't wipe it off. So we'll take that off of our paper. And Tiny Machines has done such an amazing job at getting this ready for us. So we'll just take that and the grease, and I'm going to put just a little bit of that grease right on that tab that's been cut away. So that cutaway point right there at the bottom, you can see that. Just put a little bit of grease there. Then we can take this spacer off of there and stick that right in place, and taking our gear with the ferrule side up, we'll fit that into our bracket. Just like that. Then we will take our screw or bolt that we used from before and replace that bolt. Now you can use a dot of Loctite on those threads, and that will help to maintain this, but I'm just going to check it periodically and make sure that it stays tight. So just take that and just go snug. Don't over tighten this, because if you over tighten it, this gear won't be able to spin. And that's perfect. So we want to use just a little bit of our grease on these gears here. And again, this is the same gear oil and bearing lube that Creality uses. They do sell it on their website, and I think Tiny Machines is going to have this available as well, or a little small sample in the kits eventually. So that's all there is to it to get our new arm positioned and correctly installed. So let's make sure that we put our insert back inside of there, and it may be a good idea to put a little bit of oil on that as well, because that's a moving part in there, and that'll only help it so that it will move freely inside of there as well. So just a little teeny bit. Just smooth it out. Drop that right back down in. And now we're ready for final assembly. Alright, it's time for some final assembly. Make sure that you take this gear off, clean the inside, clean off all the tines, and evaluate it to make sure there are no issues with this gear. And then assemble it back together by taking out the set screws, reassembling the set screws, and making sure that you're lined up with where the filament's going to feed through this tube. So it's very simple to do that. Feed a piece of filament through, make sure you line this gear up perfectly with that filament, and you should be good to go. Now the one thing I did not show was removing this screw to make sure that this screw goes back inside of our new lever. So simply take this screw out and install it in your new lever. About that far is fine. Now, install your lever back in the same position and hole that it was before. And this bolt on top should be firm, but not too tight. So this arm should move freely. If there's any issues with this arm moving, then reevaluate what that problem is and then make sure it moves correctly. Ours moves perfect, so we're good. Now we're going to reinstall our spring by putting it over that screw that we just did and pressing it into place. Now you may have to use a screwdriver or just some strong fingers and get it back in place like so. Then reinstall this screw. Now this screw sets your tension. And that's just right. Now how you can test to make sure that your tension is set right, feed a piece of filament through the filament feeder, take your Bowden tube off, and slide that filament back and forth, making sure that this grips, and it should grip back and forth. Do it slowly, and you'll be able to tell when it's done. Alright, so you can take your Cr10S-Pro from having felt prints, crumbly parts, to beautiful, full-fledged prints again, with as simple as a repair to the arm that guides in the filament and making sure it's retracting and extruding correctly. So the last thing to do is to take our part that we have, clean it, make sure there's no grease or residues, put it back inside of the plastic envelope, put it in our box. Let's seal that back up. Just like that. Take the slip, put it over the top of the other label, and that's as easy as it is. Just ship this back to Tiny Machines so that they can take care of their next customer. So Tiny Machines is always willing to step beyond that line to take care of their customers, bring you quality pieces of equipment. So Tiny Machines is where I recommend to get your Cr10S-Pro, because we have reached out to Creality, and Creality is making some changes. But because Tiny Machines is here in the US, you can get your repair parts even faster. And we took care of an issue that came up within a matter of days. So thank you very much for joining us on this episode of LD3D. If you liked what you saw here and you want to see other really cool parts, tricks, mods, make sure you press that subscribe button and ring the bell as well. Other videos are up here on the top so you can see those. Just click on the link up there and they'll show you even more. So make sure that you subscribe. If you want to help me bring quality pieces of video like this to help you in your day-and-day printing, make sure that you go down to the bottom there. I have a link where you can just buy me a cup of coffee or send me any denomination that you would like. It helps us build this channel, and through subscribers and also through people who are contributing is how I'm able to run this channel. So thank you so much for watching, and I appreciate every single new subscriber on our channel. So make sure you subscribe below so you'll know when I bring you other videos. And as always, happy printing, you guys, and bye for now.